that same period as well, Elton booked the studio to do the Single Man album. Although, no, I think Single Man was done when Gus still owned the studio, thinking about it. Yeah, it's a bit weird to think that Gus was okay with having Clive produce Elton in his studio.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems really weird now, because he must have been well pissed off that he wasn't producing it. But yeah, but Ice on Fire, which I didn't have as much fun as I would have liked during that album. It was a bit of a chore, to be honest, to say the least. It just went on and on and on. The idea of that album, I don't know if you know this, not a lot of people know this, but the idea was that whereas Elton normally only wrote enough songs for an album, on this album he was going to write twice as many songs and choose the best songs. Because for Gus, this was going to be the best album Elton's ever made. You know, without a doubt, it's going to be the very best. And actually, it was also a moment because we were doing it digitally. And Gus wanted to do it digitally. We did experiments to see what was better, whether it was going to be better than analog. It was going to cost an absolute fortune. So Gus was putting everything into this, you know. But pretty soon, they all decided that everything was great. All the songs were great. So it was going to be a double album. And it wasn't really. It was probably, there was probably one great album there, but not two, you know. In fact, I've got the gold disc up there. So, yeah, Elton was going through a bulimic period and he was smoking joints like it was going out of fashion. We had fun though. I mean, I only remember him giggling throughout the whole album. I think that was all I remember.
Yeah.
Him laughing all the time. So we had fun, but it wasn't the greatest album. Although we had some great people on it. You know, we had the Queen rhythm section, George Michael. There were some great musicians, Nick Kershaw.
When I listened to Ice on Fire, I remember when it came out, it's like, okay, Gus is going to work with Elton again. And then this album comes out, it just sounded like 80s music. It didn't have any of that touch, and the songs weren't there. So I'm just kind of curious, did Gus lose his way as a producer? What do you think was happening there? Do you have any feelings about that?
Well, no, I was just sort of saying that the idea was, well, if Gus lost his way, his idea was this was going to be the ultimate album. And the thing is that everything Gus did was the ultimate anyway. So for Gus to go even further than the ultimate was probably going to be, you know, there might be problems there anyway, because he always pushed it to the limit. And now we're going digital. We're having twice as many songs. Every song was going to have almost like a different rhythm section. I can remember this like it was yesterday, like the meetings, because what he decided now was he was going to actually have the bass and drummer chosen on what suited the song, you see. So as far as Gus was concerned, he was actually going beyond getting a band in like Hookfoot or getting Nigel and Dee in, you know. This was like a new direction which was going to outshine anything that went before. And I suppose, to use the word modern, you know, this was going to be putting Elton into the towards the 21st century or something. And that's how it was approached. I mean, digital was brand new. The thing with digital is it tends to make everything very clinical, really. That on its own, the digital move, and with Gus's production, that would be all this precise stuff anyway. There's a lot of things pointing to why it wasn't a great record. There isn't one thing, it's a lot of things. The main thing was that there were 20 songs and there were probably only 8 or 9 great ones. And we recorded all of them, and then they ended up on Leather Jackets. And no one likes Leather Jackets either. No one says much about Ice on Fire. I mean, the main track that came out of it was Nikita, really, which I've got a silver disc for. And to be honest, Nikita was the most boring track we recorded. And every time we started working on it, I used to fall asleep because it feels like it's been on for about 4 minutes and then it starts again. And I never dreamt that it would be a single or it would be something that kids like and it would be in films and all. Oh, Nikita! Oh, you fall asleep to that. The duet with Cliff was great. Love Cliff Richard to bits, and them in the studio doing the duet was amazing, you know. If anything, it wasn't Gus losing his way. It was him trying to be probably too clever, I suppose, or too much. I mean, I nearly had a nervous breakdown. I had to In fact, I checked in at a health farm. I couldn't handle it. When we were doing the solo in Nikita, it seemed to go on for about a fortnight, 2 weeks, with Fred sitting there playing this solo for hours and hours and hours, you know. People would go off and then they come back a few days later and they say, well, you know, you're still working on this solo. But actually, if you hear that solo, it's amazing. Totally amazing. It's like a film. So you see, that's the thing with Gus's productions. They might have been hell if you were there to see the process. And to be honest, the first Elton album that Gus did was a bit like that. You know, he pushed the limits. You know, he booked an orchestra. It was all written out. No one did that. You know, if you think about the difference between Empty Sky and the Elton John album, it's like different band. It's a completely different band, completely different music. That's all down to Gus, really. It's not all down to Gus, of course. Elton wrote the songs and Elton wrote the arrangements on that piano, semi-classical. It's Gus pushing the boundaries of production and sound. So that's all he was doing on that Ice and Fire, pushing the boundaries yet again. And he certainly pushed the boundaries as far as I think it cost £1 million, like $2 million to make that album or something. It was just mad. And of course, the fact that it didn't do very well isn't very good, you know. I mean, Elton has to pay for that one way or another. I can probably afford it now, but that's my answer to that.
Who is the most remarkable person you've ever worked with, musician or otherwise?
Elton.
Yeah.
Elton and Gus. Working together with Gus was, you know, he's on the wall here. I mean, that's where I learnt my trade as a producer, if you like, to know the utter limits that you could take at getting a sound. I never go as far as Gus goes. When having sat there with him through all those mixes and stuff, and his attention to detail and the whole bit, I mean, you know, the respect that I had for Gus, what he did to Elton's career, you know, how he transformed Elton's sound, and people like Paul Buckmaster, you know, and they were so incredible at what they did.